Well, what's old is new again. The federal government funds its first advance under the Housing Accelerator Fund, and the government is scrapping the GST. All this and your questions on episode 147 of the Wise Old Owl Show. I'm Vince Gaetan. Thanks for tuning in. And boy, it's been a crazy week. I've been tied up dealing with my elderly dad, 90 years old, got a heart valve replacement. So I've been a bit out of tune, but I've been trying to keep in touch with what's happening in the news. And it looks like the federal government are pretty excited about their caucus retreat in London, Ontario. They have announced that the Housing Accelerator Fund that was launched in 2021 had its first funding in London, Ontario. They're advancing $74 million to build just over 2,000 homes in the London area. Took a while to get this accelerator fund going. Wasn't really moving as quickly as it should have, but they're announcing that that's about $37,000 per house that will be built, and those funds go to the municipality to change the zoning and accelerate the process of building homes. I don't know where those funds are actually going to. I don't think they're actually going into the building of units, but it goes to the City of London to expedite the process, which will be interesting to watch. We'll see how many more cities get in on the action of this $4 billion program that's been in place for 2 years, and we've just seen our first advance. So really interested to see how that goes. But the big news today, this afternoon, was that the federal government, under pressure of the polls telling them that nothing's being done, they're scrapping the GST on all apartment rental construction. And what's interesting is, as soon as that was announced, the province of Ontario, Doug Ford's Conservative government, matched their portion of the HSE. So that brings 13% in tax reduction on the construction of rental apartments or development. So these are on all new construction. So we'll get more details on whether this is on repurposing projects, whether it's just on apartment buildings. We'll get more details on this project. It's effective today, so it's immediate, which is interesting. But what bothers me about this program is that the Liberal government had this waiving of the GST on rental affordable units in their 2015 platform. In their election platform from 2015, they had the elimination of the GST, okay? Now, we're in 2023. It's 8 fucking years later, okay? In 2017, they chose to scrap that idea, although it was promised in 2015, and now they're rehashing it. So this isn't new. They had this on the table, and one has to ask, why has it taken 8 years for it to happen, okay? Now, in order for governments to work effectively, they gotta be very proactive and not reactive, okay? If they know they're gonna be steamrolling people through the gates on an immigration basis, they should have the housing available for them to live in, okay? And this is where this government has failed miserably. And I'm not just picking on the Liberals in this case, because it's 3 levels of government that are responsible for this mess. But it all starts at the top. And the top is the gatekeeper who controls manpower. When you have millions and millions of people that are coming here year after year, it's a problem. A good friend of mine, Ron Butler, had a post and talked about this issue. And to put things into perspective, recently I've been meeting with some folks, investors. They're coming up from the States. They want to get some insight on the Canadian marketplace, and I had the privilege to meet up with them, and they want to get some insight. And Ron met with the same group. And one of the things that Ron pointed out to them was that if you take the equivalent prorated number of immigrants that are coming to Canada and relate it to the US, we would have to bring in The US would bring in 8.5 million people there, in and around that. And they said, this is crazy. There's no way the infrastructure could handle that. And when you have Canada that really only has 4 or 5 major cities that can handle any incoming immigrants in the tens of thousands of numbers, it's going to put significant strain on the infrastructure, the support, social services support, the healthcare systems, the education system, everything. And this is where I think the feds have really screwed up over the last 8 years, knowing that they control the number of folks that are coming in here, both on a permanent basis and non-permanent basis. All the student visas that are being issued. We are looking at close to 900,000 international students in Canada this year. Where do they live? Like, we just hit a record again for rents in Canada, okay? The national average for rents is $2,117 per month. Another record, up 9.6% year over year. That's ridiculous. In Toronto alone, a 1-bedroom is $2,620, okay? So that's great. The GST is going to be eliminated from these rental bills, okay? But what's going to happen to rent today? What's going to happen to building residential homes today, okay? So does this mean everybody's just got to resort to being a tenant? Because all these issues or these new programs are for tenants. How about people who want to be a homeowner in this country? What happens to them? How do affordable homes get built? How do they get built fast? And I always want to point out the 57 acres that exist in the city of Toronto where infrastructure is already there. You got transit hubs on either ends of this parcel of land called the East Allen District lands. 57 acres that is poised to have 3,000 plus units built. Creatio started this project in 2009. We're still have an empty field. We still have an empty field. There's not a shovel in the ground. And I'm going to guess it's going to take a few more years before they even do that. So nothing's going to get built fast. You know, all these programs are for projects that are going to be built in the future, but people need houses now. People need accommodations and reasonable places to live now. And we just don't have that in our grasp anytime soon because we've been behind the black ball. We cannot get into a proactive mode in government to prepare and be more aggressive in our plans to make sure that the future is bright, that things are going to get done. I just don't have any hope that anything's going to get done. And as far as affordable housing is concerned, I don't think it exists. It really doesn't. Okay. So couple other things. Credit card debt. Equifax came out with another report. We've hit another record with credit card debt in the second quarter. There are now, what's the number? We hit $107.4 billion in Q2, an all-time high of debt being carried. And total consumer debt in Canada, okay, has now hit $2.4 trillion. Unbelievable, folks. People are racking up their credit card debt. They're utilizing every available means to make their payments. Disposable income is getting hammered, okay? And all these announcements by the federal government are not helping. You know, another measure that the feds came out with today in their caucus meeting is they want to put pressure on grocery execs to try to lower the prices of grocery. How about this? Get rid of the carbon tax. Why don't we just scrap the carbon tax? That might help. That might help the cost of food on how it's produced, how it's transported, how it's packaged. That all gets passed on to the consumer. So let's not fool ourselves, folks. We need real measures that impact dollars and cents so people could pay less, people could have a little bit more in their pocket and get through the day. Okay? So enough of the rants. let's, just get into the questions and answers from our friends. We go into the hockey helmet, so tighten the chin straps, tighten the helmet. Let's get right into it, okay? So, first question from Seb735. Homes taking longer to sell. Is this possibly a new trend that will continue? Well, it's a good question. What people need to keep in mind is that things are taking longer to sell because the buyers can't afford as much. Okay, the qualifying criteria under the stress test has made it very difficult for folks to access the mortgage levels that are needed to pay for these homes. It's just not working. And folks are reluctant to co-sign. I'm starting to sense. It's becoming a problem. So I think the longer homes will be listed for a longer period of time, and this trend will continue right into the end of the year, probably into the spring, because we don't see rates moving down anytime soon, okay? As much as the Bank of Canada did have a pause at the beginning of September, they still got 2 bullets in the gun for October and December's meeting, and who knows what they're going to do. But as far as rates are concerned, the bond market's just sitting just under that 4%. Today it was sitting at 3.96%. Last week it was about 3.92. For the last 30 days, it's been level. Like, it hasn't really moved much. And that's an indication that things are going to be high for longer. We may be at the peak of hikes, but we still got to see what inflation is going to look like. Got to look at the job numbers, see what that does. And, our GDP, our productivity is like in the toilet. So we're technically already in a recession, but it's just going to take a while for all these data points to really give confidence to TIF to lower rates. And I don't see that anytime soon, but who knows? Next question. Tabitha.Shan. Is there another Bank of Canada hike anticipated? When will they start lowering rates? Well, again, I don't know if there's going to be another hike. We have to look at the data. We have to look at what's going to be trending from an unemployment perspective, inflation, and GDP perspective. I think the damage is being done. I always tell folks, respect the lag. The lag in the length of time it takes for these interest rate hikes to take shape is now coming into play. We're starting to see a lot of folks starting to struggle. People are starting to spend less. Credit card balances are going up, as I pointed out earlier, and it's clear that things are starting to break. And that might be good news, sadly, good news for the Bank of Canada governor, because it could let him believe that, okay, we have enough hikes. Let's see everything starting to take shape as far as the impacts of the rate hikes, forcing folks to slow things down, and that will provide him some evidence that things are working. Let's hold off and then start thinking about when we could probably ease off on the gas with these hikes. So we'll see. The prediction business sucks. It's tough. So I'll leave it at that. KZ067, what are your thoughts on Harold, the mortgage closer, losing his license? Wow. Well, that was interesting this week. FSRA, the financial regulator, is looking to revoke Harold the jeweler's license on grounds that he's not suitable to operate in the mortgage broker business due to his conduct. This guy is just riddled with problems. Wasn't cooperating with FSRA's investigation. He provided a false and misleading info to FSRA, according to the report and notice that FSRA put out. And not only do they want to revoke his license, they want to refuse renewing his mortgage brokerage license. And they're looking to fine him $70,000. Now, having run into a few of his victims, and I call them victims because they came in here in tears, they were highly distraught and, just beyond themselves. Having run into a few of them, 70,000 fines is a pittance for what this guy was charging them in lender fees. He wasn't charging broker fees because he was vetting everything through his lawyer, and it was just a shit show. But I'm kind of pleased that FSRA is stepping in, because it's people like this that are not serving the customers and Canadians and Ontarians well, and he needs to get out of this business. This guy's just bad news, and I'll leave it at that. D_Demelis. How many buyers are you seeing paying cash for primary residences? Well, not many. People that are paying cash are not coming in looking for mortgage brokering help. So they probably wouldn't be coming to see me if they're buying something cash, because they don't need a mortgage. So I'm not seeing many of them. But what I will say is there are people that are taking out mortgages on their home to buy things out in cash for investment properties and whatnot. But that's not necessarily cash that they have savings. They're using credit to access the equity in their home to buy something. But we're not seeing many of it, okay? Are we going to see a recession in Canada this year? I think we're already in one. The definition of recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. We're almost at the tail end of the second quarter of that happening, and chances are we already are in a recession. And it's just a matter of time at the end of this month to validate it. But things are breaking, things are slowing down, and we're starting to see the layoffs, we're starting to see the job losses. And one thing I want to point out, the latest job numbers showed an increase in jobs that were created. 50,000 of those jobs were self-employed jobs. Okay, these are people that got probably laid off, probably got let go, and decided that they're going to be self-employed. Okay, because the people that you don't get that number of self-employed people unless something impacted them, and chances are they were in they probably lost their jobs. Okay, so I think we're going to see that sooner than later. Anthony Hilton, LVO. Saw on Instagram that Royal Bank offering a fixed mortgage at 3.99%. Is this true? No, haven't seen it. If you could find it, take it. Don't tell anybody, and just run away with it. Because if you got somebody offering you $3.99 on a fixed rate, take it all day long. It may be subsidized by a builder who has financing available on site, and they may be buying down the rate, so that rate is tied to the purchase of a specific property that is being bought down by the builder, paying the lender cash to offer that lower rate. That's where you may see something like that. So be wary. It's a bait and switch if you think that a branch is offering that. But if they are, let me know. I'll spread the word to everybody who's watching to go line up at that branch and take that offer, because it's the best deal around. But I doubt it's happening. So on that note, be kind to everybody. Try to do what you can to help somebody out, because chances are they're struggling. They're really finding it tough out there. And if you have an opportunity to give a helping hand, please do so. On that note, have a good week. Take care, and we'll see you next week.